Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of the Town of Oakville's Council. I would invite everybody to rise and join Council in the singing of O Canada. Please be seated. Madam Clerk, we have no regrets. And Council, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Madam Clerk, I see none. Council, you have before you an opportunity to confirm the minutes of previous Council meetings listed on the agenda from June 25th, July 9th's confidential closed planning and development session, the special session of Council on July 27th, the confidential minutes of the closed special session on July 27th, the minutes of the Planning and Development session of Council August 7th, and the confidential minutes from that meeting on August 7th, the minutes of the Planning and Development session of Council September 10th, the meetings of the special session of Council on September 11th. Councillor Dudek moves approval. Councillor Robinson seconds. All those in favor? The minutes are adopted. Council, we have two listed delegations. Madam Clerk, would you please call the first delegation?
First delegation is Brian Forrestal, here to speak to the parking restrictions on Thistledown Road, which was item 5 of the Community Services Committee.
Mr. Forrestal. Apparently not here. Madam Clerk, would you call the next listed delegation?
The next delegation is Tom Hewitt, here to speak to Kingsway Drive on-street parking and bike lanes update, item 4 of the Community Services Committee.
Welcome, Mr. Hewitt. Council looks forward to your information. We understand you have a presentation and staff will assist you to get it going.
Okay, thank you. First off, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of Council, for hearing me speak tonight about an issue that is of quite a bit of interest within our community and has been for the last couple of years. It has to do with the changes in the topology of the road from a 3-lane road to a 2-lane road with bike lanes. Essentially, the background on this thing is I've been in the community now for 30 years on this street. There's now 2 schools. It's quite a busy road. We've been sharing the road before they had signs. Now we have signs that say share the road. We've been doing this for a long time. Here on behalf of myself and the Pollards, who are my next door neighbors, as a result of these bike lanes going in, our parking was removed in order to accommodate these bike lanes. Received a leaflet 2 years ago indicating there was going to be changes to our street, indicated the parking was going to remain. Subsequently, it was paved and marked, and the parking was removed. We brought this to Councillor Hutchins' attention, who convened a meeting with some of the folks from engineering who came out and viewed the site. Essentially, what we were looking to do in this thing was to make some minor changes in order to accommodate some of the residents on the street, and subsequent to this, many neighbors have come forward. We had a COCA meeting earlier in the summer, and at that meeting, Councillor Hutchins and the mayor, obviously both had come out and had heard about this issue, and there was interest in doing something about this. Kingsway Drive has 102 residents on it. Of them, there are 77 residents who actually have driveways that actually back onto Kingsway Drive. Morrison, who's a member of the COCA Association on the executive, hand-delivered leaflets to every resident on the street and asked for feedback on the new lines on the road. Of the 77, she got 20 back, which is quite a large percentage of responses. The breakdown on it was the removal of the center lane, which was used before for making left turns and for backing into. This is a very busy road. There's 12 comments that were all quite negative on the impact of losing that lane. There was another 9 comments that had to do with loss of parking up and down the street, and there's several for speeding, which there's an issue on this street with speeding. As a matter of fact, what ended up happening is a speed study was convened, and it's found that essentially it's the same results as we had about 3 or 4 years ago, which is people are speeding through the school zone. And typically the average speeds are going through there in the 54 to 56 kilometer per hour area in a 40 kilometer hour zone. So obviously people aren't too happy about this. So there's almost 26% negative response. So staff was asked to consult on this and essentially provide some potential for resolution on this. This had to do with the speeding and also with the parking. The response at the end of the community services meeting, which was convened a week ago, was that because these were dedicated bike lanes, that there was nothing that could be done. So I guess the question comes down to is why are these dedicated bike lanes in the first place? We have very low volumes of actually cyclists that are on this street. This type of a scenario is a great scenario for streets that don't have any driveways on them. Because as soon as you add them in there, you end up with issues with people backing out. Typically, these types of bike lanes are used on faster speed limits. Most of our street is 40 kilometers. Dedicated lanes don't need to be continuous. So there can be breaks in them, and actually on our street right now, they use dotted lines to transition from the side of the road out to the bike lane and through intersections. So this is a strategy that's already being used by the town. There's multiple topologies in the town on shared bikes and cars. The residents and the association were never briefed on this in the first place. So these lines went in with a couple days' notice. The lines are painted on the road, and the main street of our subdivision all of a sudden has got issues on it when there was no chance to provide feedback before any of this ended up happening. Something that needs to be said here is that the people that live on the street are not against bicycles. We've had bicycles and used bicycles for 30 years in our house. And my kids grew up, they rode bikes on the street. To my knowledge, there's never been an accident. Cyclists who delegated at the last community service committee, there were some people that came in to talk. They indicated that they liked the topology was there, but from their perspective, it could be tweaked in order to accommodate the people in the houses that are on this street. Because again, this isn't just about people that are cyclists, this is about people who live in this community and basically have to get in and out all the time. The solution is transition lines, which are in use right across the road from where my house is. It's been said that there's no issue with parking in our neighborhood. This is standing on my front lawn, and that is all the parking that there is, and it's all filled up. Across the road, there are houses that have 25-foot lots, and there isn't enough room to park in front of them, and when there is a spot that's there, the people who live on that street, they actually park there. To the right of my place, you can't park there because it's a school zone. Across the road to the right, you can't park there because that's also a school zone. So there is very limited parking, and it just seems to us that there's an opportunity here in order to tweak this to make everybody happy. This is just some of the other ways that this has been done, and these are these sharrows that are used, and obviously there's dedicated parking that's there, and the bicyclists and the cyclists are able to get around these just fine. Another one, Ford Drive, this is another way that this is being done. Again, you build these things based upon what's in front of you. It's not a clean slate to start building new bicycle lanes. You have to deal with what's there in the first place. This is the front of my house, and as you can see, the lines are basically going diagonally across in front of the house, and that's what basically has cut off the parking that was there previously. All that's being suggested here is to use the dotted line strategy, which is exactly the same as what's being used across the road. In summary, appreciate the opportunity to present our point of view. We've done this on numerous occasions. The report that's come back on this thing after us spending 2 years on this thing has come back and said to make no changes whatsoever. So we have a whole community and people that live on Kingsway Drive, and for 2 years we've been now talking and providing ideas on how this could be resolved to everyone's satisfaction. But at this stage of the game, we haven't gotten anywhere. Dedicated doesn't need to be continuous. There's a high percentage of residents on Kingsway who voiced their concerns. There's 26%, and essentially in the consulting session that happened in August when staff met with COCA, it's, again, my understanding that all of these 20 concerns, none of them were addressed. So no one looked at where these people were and potential solutions for them. It was essentially, there's no issues that are up there. We're not anti-bike, we use bikes ourselves. The median the bike lane design can include a compromise. As a matter of fact, when we used to park in front of our house, it would choke down a little bit of the entrance into the school zone, and people actually slowed down, which was, a lot of people saw as being fairly positive. Hybrid solutions are being used in other parts of the town and could just as easily be used up where we are. There's multiple safe, accepted share the road strategies that could be implemented up here. We're talking about a low-cost solution here. We're talking about paint. Like, we're not trying to boil the ocean. We're just looking for some minor variances. Our request on this is that COCA would like to work with town on this thing in order to come up with a solution that truly deals with the issues that are up there and not just say there's nothing happening or no problem up there. A return of parking for a number of people in the audience tonight would be what people are looking for. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your information. Are there questions? Councillor Lischina.
Thank you for your delegation, Mr. Hewitt. There was the main area of complaint from the residents was the missing center lane as a result of change in that topography. Are you also advocating to have the center lane back, or just the parking issue?
I'm advocating for both to come back, and I'll tell you, my situation is that when I back up in order to go east, I back into the median. So I still have that third lane when I go that direction, but when I want to go west, I'm backing out, and I don't have too much difficulty in heading west. The problem with the people that are next door to me is that when they're trying to back out in order to go east, they're crossing several lanes, and there's vehicles that are coming the other, like they're already going east, and before you could tuck into that third lane. And it was a safety valve in order to let the cars go by without backing out in front of them. So I'd advocate for the third lane as well.
So your whole presentation is based on tweaking. That doesn't sound like tweaking. You're saying to go back to what the original was.
It's, you know what, I think there's still, the original on it did have a recognition that bikes were on the road. There was no share the road signs. I'm still saying that I think it's a good opportunity for cyclists in order to use the road. But the issue is right now, again, like with, what was the number that I had here for the number of people that were talking about the third lane? It's not as big of an issue for me personally, because as I say, when I back up, my problem is covered because I'm backing into the median, so the cars still can go by me.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I do have a question for staff after we're done.
Are there other questions from the delegation? Councillor Hutchins.
Yes. Hi, Tom. Thank you for coming. Just to be clear, you're asking for the third middle lane to be restored, because I understood that the bike lanes, all the people there were perfectly happy with the bike lanes and that they needed to be tweaked so that the potential speeding in the school zones could be prevented, because you're narrowing the difference between the bollards that prevent people speeding through and the side of the road.
I'm in an interesting situation here. We've had this is the third delegation on this, and there was other people that actually delegated earlier on about the third lane. The third lane is not as much an issue for me, so if I'm speaking just for myself and for my neighbor, it would be in order to return the parking the way it was before and tweak the lanes that are there.
You're saying that you want to keep the bike lanes, right?
I'm saying that the bike lane could be tweaked in front of my property with dotted lines in the way it's been done on the other side in order to retain the parking and still allow the bike lanes, you know, as much room as they have right now.
Okay, Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion at the end of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hutchins. Other questions? Mr. Hewitt, thank you very much for your information.
Thank you.
Councillor Lischina, you have a question for staff?
Yes, this is for either commissioner who was at the Community Services Committee. We had a lengthy discussion regarding this issue there, and we did speak with Ms. Jill Stephen asking the question about tweaking. And Mr. Hewitt is asking about tweaking again, and we were given the staff advice that what is done there right now is the best in order to have those dedicated lanes. Based on what Mr. Hewitt is saying here, it seems to be contradicting to what we heard at committee. Can you make a further comment on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The comments that were made at the committee were that in order to provide for a continuous bike lane along Kingsway, there was only so much width in the road, and in order to ensure that that continuous bikeway could be provided, there wasn't an opportunity to provide for more parking in that area. That was the understanding and the discussion at the committee.
Thank you.
So, Madam Commissioner, the proposal is to tweak the bike lane and use dotted lines in order to relieve the resident from the loss of parking that this improvement has imposed on him. Do staff maintain that it's not possible to have a dotted line section of this continuous bike lane?
Mr. Mayor, it's a dedicated continuous bikeway or bike lane that is proposed. If council would like to step away from that continuous dedicated bikeway, then we could look at the option of the dashed lines. This area, as well as the area down at Sheridan Gardens, are the only two east-west connections across the town that have been identified in the active transportation plan, the transportation master plan, It is identified in livable Oakville as well. So there are two very viable routes for dedicated continuous bike lanes that have been identified. If you wanted to step away from that, we could take it back and look at it, but those are key elements to the overall transportation strategy.
Did you notice when the delegation mentioned that the leaflet that was distributed 2 years ago was different than what you wound up doing?
Yes, I did note that. I'm not aware of what was in the leaflet that was passed out the 2 years prior. I would have to refer to Ms. Stephen on that item. So are we to understand that it is possible to shift to the dotted line treatment if we ask you to do it? Is that what you're saying? Certainly we can look at it from a safety point of view. I think what I'm saying is that if we're moving away from the dedicated bike lanes, we could look at a dashed line in terms of the safety and whether or not it could be accommodated in comparison to other treatments in the town.
Thank you for clearing that up for me. Councillor Dudek has a question.
Thank you. I wonder if I could ask Jill Stephen to come. She was delegating at the committee for us, and I'm glad that Councillor Lischina had mentioned that it was quite a lengthy discussion that we had, and we heard from various people. I seem to recall that the representative of COCA, as we drilled down through the issues, had made reference to the fact that in many ways the crux of the issue was they didn't feel that the 20 respondents, I believe, to the survey had an opportunity to hear from staff why they couldn't be accommodated. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that was what Ms. Morrison shared in her comments. I can share with Council that we did review each of those comments that came in, and in terms of how or if we could accommodate them based on the pavement marking scheme that's in place or with minor changes to that. We did our report back through COCA at that meeting in August. We have not reported back individually through to each of the residents.
So I guess my concern is, and it became apparent as we went through the meeting, there was a sort of general consensus of accepting what was discussed through the meeting. But when I recall the one, Ms. Morrison speaking, it was that they didn't get a response, that these people had taken the time to dialogue with the town in regards to what their tweak or ask would be. And I guess my concern is that maybe in future, if somebody writes us and provides comments, I know sometimes we get charts back where staff have gone through and responded directly to the concerns that were raised. I think it was done in the context of the report, if I seem to recall, but not individually down through the various appendix.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the comments were all provided to COCA, who then shared them to us. So our communication was back to COCA. We have had significant conversations and correspondence with any resident who's reached out to us individually to provide the rationale for the study and to explain the work that was done.
Thank you. I think that clarifies. I was a little confused when we were at the meeting that we hadn't responded, and that gave me concern. No. It's a little unfortunate we don't have some of the cyclists who took an opportunity. In fact, I think there was one who actually lived in the area who used the bike lanes continuously. That it's more about the safety of the cyclists to have a dedicated bike lane. And I know that we changed how we're providing along Spears to have a separated bike lane so that when you have a really busy area, especially east-west like that, that you provide safety to the cyclists as well as to the motorists in the area. And I think that's what I was getting more out of through the discussions I heard from staff. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. We were looking for an opportunity to provide dedicated space separate from the motor vehicles.
Ms. Stephen, thank you for that information. Earlier we heard from the delegation that there was a difference between a leaflet distributed 2 years ago and what was finally built. Can you shed any light on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we did provide a notice to all residents of Kingsway Drive that we would be taking the opportunity through the resurfacing program to add the pavement markings, to add the bike lanes to their street. In the letter, we provided a typical image of what those bike lanes would look like and what the new cross-section would look like. We did not provide an example in front of each house. However, we did provide a link to the design drawings on the town's website, so they were available if anyone chose to follow that link. Since that time, we have heard the concerns that have been expressed, and we have been updating our process for how we notify residents about changes so that they are aware of the importance of looking at those drawings and reaching out to us.
Well, would it be accurate to conclude that the people who received the leaflet would have no reason to be concerned and go to the website and look for your additional different information?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't remember the exact wording of all of the content of that notice, but it did use the word typical to describe the cross-section. So while it would not have specifically identified each of the locations where we would see a change that would result in, say, a loss of parking on street, we did make sure that there was the link there so that folks could follow that to look for more detailed information online.
Thank you for the information. Councillor Duddock?
Thank you. I wonder if, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Commissioner, I wonder if you can, I think the one thing that sort of jumped out at me, what kind of parking provisions are provided in that zoning? I.e., is there a lack of parking provisions on the driveways? I don't want to, I know there's been some areas where we've had, say, townhouses where it's basically 1.5, or if somebody uses their garage for something other than a vehicle, they have problems trying to accommodate them.
So the zoning for that area, given the time frame that it was developed, would have required a minimum of 2 spaces per property. Those driveways too are not, I think what you're referring to is a lot of the areas perhaps in the north have much shorter driveways because we did change the standard to the north to drop the length of the driveway down. That would not be the case in this area given the time frame it was developed.
Councillor Hutchins?
Yes, I was hoping to talk to Jill again. Sorry, you went back to your seat? First of all, I want to thank my colleague, Councillor Duddock, for, I think, pointing out the problem we started with by not involving the people sufficiently, particularly COCA, who was completely absent from the early consultation. I had a couple of questions. Dedicated bike lanes or cycle lanes doesn't mean it's continuous, right? Because it has to break at every crossing intersection, and often there are dotted lines before that intersection to allow vehicles to turn right into the intersection.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we do have dotted lines at intersections to allow for right turns. On a dedicated bike lane, there would be the dotted lines at the intersections so that the motor vehicles would move into those to make their right turns.
So what's the difference here? Why wouldn't we do a dotted line here with a similar thing? I'm not just talking about Mr. Hewitt's property, but on either of the ends of the schools, whether it's the St. Luke's or the James W. Hill, the bollards there, why is there not a dotted line there to make sure that both the cyclists and the vehicles can use it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in the area in front of St. Luke's, there is enough space to provide the bike lane and the travel lane, and it's going across the top of a T intersection, so there's not a need for the dashed lines in that case. Everybody's continuing on as they were, and there's not an opportunity for a right turn there.
Okay, I have one other question. When you remove obstacles, like a parked car or something, from between the bollard and you widen a lane, what happens to the traffic? Is it usual that it speeds up because the lane is perceived as being wider?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we've used on-street parking and bike lanes both, either together or independently as forms of passive traffic calming. In the case of Kingsway Drive, we did speed surveys just before the bike lanes were implemented and afterwards in the spring of this year, and the speeds have remained relatively constant, not only through the school zones, but right across the corridor.
So you're saying that there isn't speeding in the school zones now, that we're not going to do more traffic calming?
No.
Because previously, the bollards were put in specifically to have the traffic calming because there was speeding. As I understood it, there was a test done many years ago, and they found that the speeding was more than the 85% percentile rate to cause that initial traffic calming.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the traffic calming that is in place in both of the school zones at St. Luke's and James W. Hill was as a result of speeds exceeding our traffic calming threshold. The speeds that we have measured remain relatively constant at 54 kilometers an hour or plus or minus 56 in some cases, despite the fact that the speed limit changes from the school zone to the portion between the two schools and then lowers again at James W. Hill. So it's 40 in front of St. Luke's, it then switches to 50 kilometers an hour, it then switches back to 40 kilometers an hour, but regardless of the speed limit, the actual speed of the vehicles is remaining relatively constant.
And one other last question I have. In school zones, you're not allowed to park, is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, generally there is no parking in a school zone.
So there isn't parking just down the street, because you were never allowed to park in a school zone, ever.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we haven't changed the parking in front of St. Luke's as a result of these pavement markings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stephen, for the information. Council, if that concludes the questions, we can turn now to consideration of the standing committee reports. And I would ask if there are any separations for the Administrative Services Committee report. Seeing none, I wonder if there's a mover and seconder for the adoption of that report. Councillor Giddings and Councillor Chisholm, all those in favor? And that is adopted. Councillor Hutchins, did you want to separate an item from the Community Services Committee report?
Yes, please. Yes, please. I'd like to separate item 4, the Kingsway Drive on-street parking and bike lanes.
Thank you. Is everyone satisfied with the rest of the report? May I have a mover and seconder for the rest of the report? Councillor Robinson and Councillor Dudek, all those in favor? And the rest of the report is adopted. The separated items motion was to receive the report. And Councillor Hutchins, I understand that you and Councillor Giddings have a proposed motion to add to that. Would you like to go ahead?
Yes, please. I think staff has attempted to correct its initial issues with the public here in that omitting COCA and misleading information changed everybody's expectations. I would like to try and give the staff more opportunity and the COCA to look at this whole issue again with a slightly different twist on it, in that I believe that by removing the parking, particularly in front of the bollards, both in front of the W Hill and St. Luke's, what we've done is essentially make the entrance to the school zones wider. So even though we've used our traffic calming bollards before to try to control speed, that's not happening anymore, because prior to that there were vehicles parked fairly close, so it narrowed the road. So people actually did slow down. So I'd like to propose a motion that staff reassess the Kingston Drive pavement markings to determine if the dedicated bicycle lanes could be adjusted to allow on-street parking in advance of the school zones effectively narrowing the roadway, that speed surveys be conducted to determine if this narrowing of the Kingsway Drive provides a traffic calming effect, since we are going to need some sort of traffic calming anyways, and that staff work with the Clearview Oakville Community Alliance Residents Association to determine the potential to recover, if possible, some other parking spaces, but that's not the key thing. The key thing is to the speeding in the school zones. Thank you.
And Councillor Giddings, are you seconding this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to support this.
Councillor Dudek.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. Just to confirm from a procedural aspect, we currently have the motion that was approved after extensive discussion at Standing Committee, and that's to receive the report. So in order for Councillor Hutchins' motion to be moved, we would have to defeat that motion. Is that correct?
My sense of it is that a motion to receive has no effect. It just receives for filing the report. It doesn't say yes, it doesn't say no. And the councillors wish to also have some action. I haven't heard them speak against receiving the report. I've heard them to be saying they want additional to it. They probably would like to receive, I mean, if they were bringing their own motion at the committee, they would have said receive the report and do these whatever things they wanted done. So I think we get to the same place either way.
I'm sorry, I cannot support the motion. We had an extensive discussion at the Standing Committee. We heard from quite a few residents, different aspects in fact, and it was a good balance, and I heard overwhelmingly from staff that what was trying to be proposed was not possible in order to have safe, dedicated cycling lanes. And we have thus far endorsed our active transportation plan, and I feel we're deviating away from that if we do something else. I'm sorry, I can't support the additional motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dudek. Are there other speakers? Councillor Grant.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate that Councillor Hutchins is trying to do good work for his community, but item 1, it appears that we're trying to alter the status of parking to allow it near school zones, and I find that problematic for the safety of students and for children. It bothers me so greatly that I'm afraid I can't support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Other speakers? Councillor Hutchins?
Can I speak to the motion?
Of course you can.
Okay. In the CSA committee, we lost by 2 to 3, so there was one vote difference. So it wasn't unanimous. We are also not asking. We support active transportation, and none of the residents have been asking that the bike lanes be removed. What they've been trying to do is to see if they could be more sensitively applied, and personally I'm concerned about the speeding in the school zones and how we deal with that, because without narrowing the entrance to the school zones, you allow for more speed to go through them. There is no parking in the school zones. They're open, so people tend to continue to speed. So by the point about putting the whole bollards ahead of the school zones is that you were trying to narrow, that was your whole point about putting them there in the first place. So I will be pushing for this. Thank you.
Councillor Chisholm.
Through you, Your Worship, I'm not in support of this motion either. I'm getting a little confused. We're talking speeding, and really what the issue is the bike lanes and moving bike lanes to for parking. I guess I look at this as that I think safety trumps the parking. That's my personal opinion on this, and I'm not going to support that. There seems to be some confusion about speeding and bike lanes, and I'm really directing it about bike lanes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chisholm. Councillor Giddings, did you want to say anything?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor. I think this has been covered at CSC twice and Council as well.
Thank you. I'm not going to support the motion, and I'd like to take a second to explain why. I believe that the motion asking staff to reassess the situation will get the same result because they've answered forthrightly here tonight that that is their considered view. Asking people to reassess their decision is not the way to get a different decision. If council wishes to dot the lines on the bike lanes, they're going to need to direct staff to do that. And so this is just not going to work, and for that reason, I can't support the motion. Are there other speakers, or shall I call the vote? All those in favor of the motion? Nick? All those opposed? The motion fails. And the committee report, which is to receive the report, may I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Adams and Councillor Dudek, all those in favor? Thank you, that carries. Any opposed? It carries anyway. That finishes the Community Services Committee work. We have no consent items. We have no confidential consent items. And the first discussion item is the Mayor's Annual Oakville Status Report. I'd like to take this moment to welcome everyone to my 12th Annual State of the Town Address. At the request of Her Excellency, the Right Honourable Governor-General of Canada, I'm proud to say, I just presented the Sovereign's Medal for Volunteers to 6 worthy recipients at a reception here in Town Hall. Our community benefits from all of our residents' passion for volunteering. It's an honor as part of my ceremonial duties as your mayor to help recognize them. 12 years ago, I set out to make this report every year at this time, and I have every year. I wanted to create a collection of short stories of what we are doing together to make Oakville Canada's most livable town. This event has also been the best way I have, as mayor, to alert residents of the town to challenges that from time to time have engulfed us. Think of my announcement 3 years ago at this event about Club Link's interest in removing the world-famous Glen Abbey Golf Course and replacing it with a massive subdivision where our official plan does not fit such a thing. Again, in this report, I will alert you to 2 entirely new and unexpected challenges ahead. And it's a possibility that we can turn them into opportunities, but nevertheless, they confront us, even as we continue to work to defend our decision to refuse to allow the development of Glen Abbey. Councillors Kathy Dudek, Jeff Knoll, Tom Adams, Dave Giddings, Sean O'Meara, and I are also part of Halton Regional Council, which is led by Regional Chair Gary Carr. Chair Carr learned his teamwork style of leadership as a hockey player who went all the way to the NHL as a goalie. He also went on to earn an MBA. As a goalie dad myself, I think goalie's the toughest position. We have a lot to thank Chair Carr for his leadership in helping us work together to shape Halton's future as Canada's most sustainable regional municipality. So at least once every year, being mayor feels like being the narrator of our town's ongoing story. And our story together for the last 12 months and the last 12 years has had dramatic moments. We've had challenges and obstacles. A much-loved member passed tragically young, and we've had renewals. Oakville lives on. We've had triumphs against the odds and against great threats to our health and our safety. I'm very proud to say our wins outweighed our losses. In this, my 12th annual State of the Town address, there are a mix of successes and challenges to report. I believe in our town, and I believe we will continue to prevail. There are 9 chapters in this year's State of the Town story. 1, setting records in economic development. 2, controlling growth to only what fits. 3, keeping our finances strong and healthy. 4, setting records in creating affordable housing. 5, protecting our built cultural and natural heritage. 6, providing high-quality infrastructure, facilities, and services. 7, leveraging our community's inclusivity to care for all. 8, keeping us Canada's safest region. And 9, facing 2 challenges, a review ordered by the province of municipal governance and a review ordered by the province of the speed of municipal planning approvals. In Chapter 1, Setting Economic Development Records, we can all feel proud of our town's recognition earlier this summer when Money Sense magazine named us the best place to live in Canada and Canada's best place for newcomers. For the 3rd year, the magazine also called us Ontario's best place to raise a family. We have gone from 30th place to 1st place in the overall rankings in my time as your mayor. We know we still have work ahead of us. We will always have work ahead of us. What our rise in the rankings tells us is we're on the best path. Ours is a path that is paying dividends in economic development. Our rising reputation for livability attracts economic development. For example, Oakville entrepreneur Rob Tessarolo is relocating his Mississauga-based Cipher Pharmaceuticals company to Oakville now. A proud Oakville resident for the past 17 years, Rob says what he loves about our community is the vibrant, anything is possible attitude in Oakville. I share his optimism. I hope you do too. Rob is just one player in our ongoing economic success story. We have an award-winning economic development strategic plan developed under our Economic Development Director, Dorothy St. George. We enjoyed almost 4% job growth last year. Job growth about doubled population growth. That's something all of us on council and staff are very proud of. In Chapter 2, Controlling Growth to Only What Fits, our population growth rate is down to more manageable levels thanks to Council's commitment over the last 12 years to control growth to only what fits environmentally and economically. We've been growing slower for 12 years to avoid straining our infrastructure. Our rate of growth is half of what it was when I became mayor. Our rate of growth of population is in fact at a 30-year low. This slower growth lets us protect the character of our stable, established neighborhoods and our green space. Our Livable Oakville plan directs growth to 6 growth areas, 3 major nodes at Midtown Oakville, the Uptown Core, and Palermo Village, and 3 minor nodes at Kerr Village, Bronte Village, and downtown Oakville in accordance with their wishes. This is how the official plan protects the character of our stable existing neighborhoods. It directs growth to the places where growth is wanted. Council also believes that growth should pay for itself. We keep our development charges bylaw updated to ensure that we recover the full amount possible under the Development Charges Act of 1997. The parts of growth that we are not allowed to recover the costs of are unfortunately carried on our property taxes. So growth causes tax increases. More about this in a moment. In Chapter 3, Keeping Our Town Finances Strong and Healthy, our finances are the strongest. We work hard to keep life in Oakville as affordable as possible. Over the last 10 years, we've kept taxes in line with or lower than inflation, and the trend is downward. We get great results from our decision 10 years ago to adopt performance-based program budgeting. PB2, as it's known, is the successor to the old zero-based budgeting that everybody, I think, remembers hearing about in the 60s. We also created the Office of the Internal Auditor. These steps have proven their value. As a percent of household income, our taxes are the most affordable in the GTA. We had the lowest tax increase in the GTA this year. Our tax rate is Ontario's 6th lowest. We continue to have a strong, stable financial position, which was validated during this term of council by the U of T's Institute of Municipal Finance and Governance when they ranked Oakville's fiscal health as the strongest in Ontario. And in my time as mayor, we've cut tax-paid debt by 88%. Now, Halton Region has a AAA credit rating from Moody's Investors Service and Standard & Poor Global Ratings. Oakville is a major financial component of the Halton rating because we are part of this split-level government. Halton's AAA rating is the sum of the fiscal health of its 4 local municipalities. And we all share the benefits of the AAA credit rating. Oakville is strong and able to meet the financial and service needs of our community now and in the future. We do need to think about the costs of growth. With a new provincial leader and party at the helm, looking for efficiencies and ways to lower taxpayers' costs, I hope the province now will be receptive to an approach it wouldn't listen to before that respects the taxpayer by putting more growth where the infrastructure already exists and less where it must be built new. And also fix the Development Charges Act so that we can charge the full cost of growth and get the cost of growth off the back of the taxpayer. So in sum, that means let us charge developers the full cost of growth, and let's have more growth in the city and less in the suburbs. For far too long, our existing taxpayers have been footing the bill for the costs of schools and infrastructure needed to support the massive growth the province's growth plan assigns to our town and our region. Your property taxes could be cut by 5 to 7% if the province would make developers pay the full costs of the growth from which they profit so much. Do existing taxpayers really want to keep paying for about 25% of the costs of growth? I sincerely doubt it. In Chapter 4, Setting Records in Creating Affordable Housing, we are outstanding at creating affordable housing. We blow the doors off the provincial requirement to create affordable housing. Because resale prices of existing housing are so high and they grab the headlines, it's hard to know if anybody knows about our affordable housing success story. By provincial law and Halton Region's official plan, at least 30% of new housing units produced annually in Halton must be affordable or assisted housing. In Oakville, 51.4% of new housing is below the affordable threshold, which is $365,000. In Chapter 5, Protecting Our Built Cultural and Natural Heritage, our members of council remain committed to preserving Oakville's green space and natural heritage. We've worked hard at defending our decisions to refuse development of the Glen Abbey Golf Course. It will be the job of the new council to defend the town from the appeals launched by ClubLink. ClubLink's plan would break our official plan's urban structure and destroy our most important cultural heritage landscape. If this decision isn't worth defending, there is no point having a set of land use rules called an official plan. ClubLink has filed numerous appeals, and the cost of defending our decision will be similar to the cost we paid to defend our vision of a town greenbelt called the Natural Heritage System earlier in my time as your mayor. It also remains true and daunting that Ontario owns lots of land in Oakville that it wants to develop, and some of it is in inappropriate places. As Toronto recently discovered, the province is the boss of the municipalities. A large area of northwest Oakville owned by the province has been under threat of development by the province for many years. I'm pleased that we were able to secure the Merton lands under town ownership from the province earlier this year. As a result, we saved 83% of the Merton lands, even though the province wanted to develop them. We saved all of the environmental lands, even in the part the province succeeded in getting developed. The lands are now protected recreational open space, neighborhood parkland, and public green space with wildlife corridors and linked natural heritage systems that our community can enjoy forever. So keeping the green space and open space that we have in good condition is more important than ever. Down at our lakefront, Oakville Harbor is more accessible for the public, and shoreline rehabilitation and waterfront trail improvements are being made from Tannery Park to Waterworks Park. A new waterfront trail is now open to the public and is accessible at the bottom of Maple Grove Drive or from the Lakeshore Road at the west end of the Edgemere property. And over the last year, we've planted 30,000 new trees and shrubs and cleared 77 woodlands of dead and dying ash trees, a public hazard. By popular demand, we enhanced our private tree protection bylaw to reduce the removal of healthy trees. The town also launched Please Let's Add New Trees, which is abbreviated as PLANT, plant, to encourage residents and businesses to plant trees on their property and record it on our plant webpage. More than 22,000 new trees have already been logged. This initiative, alongside our existing tree planting work and Oakville Green's new backyard tree planting program, will surely help our town reach our 40% canopy coverage goal by 2057. Trees contribute significantly to our personal health and our town's livability, and as a community, I hope we will continue to work together to protect, preserve, and grow our urban forest. In Chapter 6, Infrastructure, Facilities, and Services, our vision of being the most livable town in Canada is strengthened by our continued investment in high-quality facilities, infrastructure, and services. We recognize the importance of investing in a healthy, active lifestyle and what our residents need and value. Each year, our community centers and cultural facilities welcome nearly 4 million visits. That number will continue to grow with the addition of the new Trafalgar Park Community Center, which opened over the weekend. This 65,000 square foot facility retains the distinctive wooden roof truss system of the old Oakville Arena, while boasting a full NHL-size ice surface, an indoor running track, a new seniors center, and much more, inside and outside. We've also begun work on the Southeast Community Center and the neighborhood park on the former hospital lands. About 3 acres of green space will be created on this presently gray space. It will be open to the public by the fall of 2020. Library services are being offered now at 16 Mile Sports Complex, much like the services offered at Queen Elizabeth Park Community and Cultural Center. A temporary library will open this winter across the parking lot from the sports complex to address the growing need for library resources in North Oakville. This 5,000 square foot modular building will be equipped with traditional library services and resources, technology, programming, seating, and study space. It will become part of the new community center there when that project is built. Meanwhile, the White Oaks Library branch is open again after being closed for the summer for renovations. And in the spring of next year, the Glen Abbey branch will see renovations that will update it into a technological and creative hub for residents. Investments in our infrastructure are crucial to our livability, and we aren't stopping there. Fresh on the heels of the new bridges over the 16 Mile Creek Harbor, there are 5 road improvements you will see in addition to our 10-year road quality resurfacing program. First, key arterial roads are being widened to help move traffic. Work on Cornwall Road and Dundas Street has already begun, with Trafalgar Road construction set to begin next spring. Second, the grade separation projects at Burl Oak Drive and Kerr Street will begin next year in partnership with Metrolinx. Third, an east-west bridge will be built to connect Wycroft Road to Burl Oak Drive. Fourth, we'll have smart traffic signal coordination upon completion of a pilot project to test out smart traffic signal technologies. Fifth, with Lakeshore Road East between Navy and Allen Streets coming to the end of its lifespan in downtown Oakville, this road will be rebuilt next spring. Smart infrastructure will be incorporated. The streetscape will be revamped. Public spaces like Town Square and Centennial Square will receive a makeover. We will have the most attractive downtown in all of Canada when it is done in 2 years. Council's mitigation strategy will minimize disruption to businesses during the reconstruction as we work towards transforming downtown Oakville into the most attractive downtown village in Canada. The town will also have the option of restoring Town Hall to its historical roots in downtown Oakville. The province's official growth plan has led to the requirement for a new transit bridge over the QEW by Trafalgar Road, running over the present town hall location. Town hall will need to be moved. A logical place for it would be in our downtown, in my submission. I believe the move to downtown Oakville would help reinvigorate the area. One possible location could be the old fire hall site on Navy Street, where a 12-story office building has been permitted in our official plan. Our community can also look forward to welcoming a new 21-room courthouse in Oakville to replace the courthouse that was traditionally in Milton. It is expected to begin construction late next year. This has long been needed by our judges and lawyers and by our police. I was pleased to have provided my support for getting this project approved and located in Oakville, near our new hospital. I'd also like to congratulate Halton Police on opening its new headquarters in Oakville. As chair of the Halton Police Services Board, I'm proud to see this state-of-the-art facility finished. For 15 years, the need to either expand our police headquarters or build a new facility to accommodate our growing service was obvious. The consensus necessary to make it happen, however, was not available. I am proud of the part I played in getting the consensus needed to make this headquarters happen at last. In Chapter 7, Inclusivity and Serving the Needs of All, we have very much to be proud of here in Oakville, but as we continue to write our story, we should be reminded that our greatest strength is our sense of community and our direction. We continually work at being an inclusive community, and we have ever since our days as a terminus on the Underground Railroad when we welcomed escaped fugitive slaves from slavery in the United States. Everyone deserves to enjoy a place to work, play, and raise a family. Recognizing that everyone has a right to live in good health and with dignity, we have people and organizations like June Cockwell's Halton Poverty Roundtable leveraging resources and partnerships to fight poverty in Halton through education and engagement. They are the reason I support the town of Oakville becoming a living wage employer and why I'm fully supportive of community benefit agreements, social procurement, and social enterprises. As chair of Halton's Health and Social Services Committee, I will ask the region to create a poverty advisory group to develop opportunities for action on poverty. And while we know that many of us in Oakville and across Halton enjoy a higher social and economic status, together we can work at helping lift those who are struggling to make ends meet. It is the Oakville way to care about and connect with our neighbors. You can see from the candidates in the current election that people of all faiths and ethnicity feel included enough in our community to run for office, and I would say have a very good chance of winning. We are a city that calls itself a town and acts like a village that still includes and cares about and listens to everyone. That's how we hold on to our small town charm and our safety. In Chapter 8, our police and our safety has been a paramount concern to me. Every year that I've been mayor, we've been Canada's safest large community. Halton Police have steadily improved their record in crime solving and just plain catching the bad guys. Halton Police deserve our respect and our thanks for the work they do in keeping our community safe, our children safe. Halton has been recognized again as the safest large municipality in Canada, according to Statistics Canada this year. Halton Police are deeply committed to British Prime Minister Sir Robert Peel's principles of community policing, and I hope all of us understand our crucial role as community members in having a safe community. Quote, "The police are only members of the public who are paid to give full-time attention to the duties which are incumbent on every citizen in the interests of community welfare and existence," unquote, is what Prime Minister Sir Robert Peel said. In line with those principles, Halton, the upper tier of our split-level government in Halton, and the Halton Police have created the first regional community safety and well-being plan to work together with our helping agencies to get at the upstream roots of crime and social disorder and poverty and make our community even safer and healthier. I have to tell you, the proudest moment of my time on the police board was 10 days ago when former Halton Police Chief James Harding gave me his keepsake medallion for the bicentennial of Sir Robert Peel's birth. He told me to keep it until I was sure I could find a worthy successor to whom to pass it. Chief Harding was chief 5 chiefs ago, and his legacy of establishing the Peel principles here is stronger than ever. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a legacy we can all aspire to make change and to see it last. Our police take the safety and well-being of our community to heart. We owe them a reciprocal commitment and gratitude. I hope you will join me in expressing our deep appreciation and our wishes for speedy recoveries for the 2 valiant Halton police officers who were wounded in the shooting Saturday in Burlington. As chair of the police board, I was part of the swearing in of each of these young officers. It felt like being a police board chair dad when I was visiting with the officers, Officers Schneider and Hansen and their wives, on Saturday. I was impressed when I visited them in hospital that they had also received a personal visit from Premier Doug Ford. As municipalities look ahead at the legalization of marijuana on October 17th, I know that we are ready, and so are the Halton Police, to ensure our community remains safe. Now, I know opinions differ about cannabis, and I want to take a moment to set out some basic facts. We take an oath of office that says we will be faithful to the laws of Her Majesty's government. Her Majesty's governments have decided that cannabis will be legalized October 17th, and next year, in April, there will be private retail stores in Ontario. These are settled matters. I do not dispute them. I take my oath of office to heart, as you can see. Now, here are the facts about the Government of Ontario's plans. The government provided us 2 briefings last month on their plans. The reason they are offering municipalities a short, one-time opportunity to opt out of having private stores in April, and this opportunity doesn't exist until the next term of council when they decide to make the option available, but we believe it'll be in December. The reason they're offering it is that they recognize the uncertainties they are not ready to clear up around the 6 big questions of locations and numbers of stores, hours, enforcement, authorities to do the enforcement, and public smoking. If you opt out, the province says, you can opt in later when the 6 big questions are answered if you like the answers. If you don't opt out and you discover later that you don't like the answers to the 6 big unanswered questions, when those answers come forward, they say you cannot opt out then. In any case, the opt-out decision is a matter for the next council after the government opens their short, time-limited opt-out window and puts the opt-out question to the municipalities. No matter what, cannabis will be available online as of October 17th, and it will be legal for adults to smoke it in their homes. And there will be no stores for anyone before April, the government said. They said their retail rollout will be, quote, an iterative process, unquote. The word iterative means experiment. It means keep trying things until you get it right. So the choice is, do you want to be part of the experiment or do you want to wait and see how it settles down? In Chapter 9, Municipal Governance and Planning Review, the big challenges that lie ahead, we now face 2 new challenges in the next term of council. Being an eternal optimist, perhaps these 2 challenges can become opportunities. But challenge or opportunity, a municipal governance review and a municipal planning approvals review have been launched by the Ontario government. We, as part of Halton, are included in those reviews. Now, a governance review usually involves a look at who does what. The actual terms of the reviews have not been set, but we have been given some advice by the province. In consultations with us last month at the annual conference of the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the government told us the main thing they want from us in the planning approvals review is to identify ways to speed up approvals of developers' projects. They want to get a big increase in the speed and the number of houses being built. Then, in a speech to the delegates, Premier Doug Ford closed his speech with these words, and I quote, "And together we will make this province better than it has ever been," he said. He then added these final words that were not in his prepared text, and I quote, "A new day has dawned in Ontario, a day of prosperity and growth the likes of which the province has never seen before," unquote. The Premier has spoken. I've known him a few years, and I always find it's best to take him at his word. He likes to move quickly. If we want a say in these reviews, we, all of us in our community, need to start thinking about what we want our future story to be, and we need to share it with our MPPs, Stephen Crawford and Effie Triantafilopoulos. And we need to start asking them what they want the future story of our community of Oakville and for Halton to be. This was not covered in the elections in June, so there's not a lot more to go on except the government's statements that it needs to cost less and growth needs to speed up. Through the last 12 years, I've been fortunate to work alongside my council colleagues, dedicated staff, engaged residents, and passionate community leaders who are committed to and achieving our shared vision to be Canada's most livable town. It's been even more fulfilling work than running my television network, YTV, was, and that's saying something. Our traditional two-tier town council of councillors, of councillors who are town only and councillors who are town and regional, has served us well for generations, providing more voices at the table and giving us real value and better decisions. Councillors Ralph Robinson, Ray Chisholm, Nick Hutchins, Peter Longo, Mark Grant, and Natalia Lischina, your positions on town council have helped give Oakville the good governance that we are known for. To retiring Councillor Robinson, I say thank you, sir, for your 36 years of service. As we leave here tonight, reflecting on our town's story so far and the possible twists and turns that lie ahead, we are in good shape, strong, and resilient. If the going ahead gets challenging, let's hang on to this thought from our heritage of First Nations stories. If we take care of the land will take care of us. Now, we know that 4 of you on council will be here in December, but 11 seats, including mine, will be decided by Oakville voters by the end of October 22nd. These thoughts in my state of the town are my contribution to our future, and I hope those who are here in the future will receive some help from these remarks. Whoever is here in the future, may Oakville be forever. Thank you for your time and attention. Thank you. Thank you very much. I need a mover and a seconder to receive the report. Councillor Elgar.
Just a question, Mayor Burton. I noted that I was excluded from your list of regional councillors, and I wonder if that was a mistake or on purpose.
It was probably the speed with which I was reading it. And I apologize.
No worries.
When you're improvising as you go, you sometimes lose a word. I beg your pardon. I meant nothing by it. Now you've got me. Will you accept my apology and give me the motion to receive the report?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Hutchins. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Now, Council, we have a confidential discussion item or two exactly. C1 is a recommendation that the confidential recommendation from the Human Resources Department be approved. May I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Elgar, Councillor Longo. All in favor? Opposed, if any? And that is adopted unanimously. The next item is the recommendation, this is C2, the former Oakville Trafalgar Memorial Hospital site, the residential subdivision RFP update, And the recommendation is that the recommendation approved in the confidential report from the legal department, the recommendation in the confidential report, another typo, Councillor Elgar, the recommendation in the confidential report from the legal department dated September 11th, 2018 be approved. May I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Giddings, Councillor Chisholm, all in favor? Opposed, if any? Again, carried unanimously. We have no advisory committee minutes. Your information items have been circulated electronically, and you have your status of outstanding issues. Is there any new business to come before council? I have a request for report, and that's next on the agenda if there is no new business. There's a request for report moved by Councillor Giddings, seconded by Councillor Hutchins, further to recent concerns expressed to council by the owner of the business at 282 Church Street, that staff report back on the revised operating procedures at the Church Street Municipal Garage and provide options on how the impact to the 282 Church Street business owner may be mitigated. I understand staff have no objection to this. May I call the vote? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried unanimously. Now, council, we need a mover and seconder for the bylaws listed in the agenda. Councillor Lischina and Councillor Knoll. This is the approval of the bylaw 2018-103, a bylaw to amend bylaw 1979-59, a bylaw to regulate the parking of vehicles on town parking lots controlled by a parking payment machine or parking permit, and the rest of the bylaws as listed in the agenda. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? The bylaws are adopted. Council, thank you very much for your time and attention, and to the public. We have finished the business before us, and it's been great working with you, and we are adjourned.